man stood, gazing at the water. I asked what he was doing. He replied he was watching his own face reflected in the lake.
It's bewitching, my face.
I tried to stop, but failed. I called him a vainglorious cad. The words struck him like a blow. He fell to his knees. His face was a mask of anguish, as if the world were ending.
Impossible. I'm ravishing.
I felt as though I'd encountered something otherworldly. I distanced myself from him. But he followed me, anger in his eyes. He haunted me like a ghost. The monsters I fought, he would save. He was part of Sanctuarium, I learned.
I cannot deny my anger at your insult, sir, but
to take revenge would fly in the face of Sanctuarium's creed. Despite his words, he still looked pale, as if I'd wounded him.
Well, what man hasn't once erred?
He said. What truly mattered, he claimed, was how we are redeemed.
In my infinite beauty, I feel I must offer you a chance to atone.
Nothing the man said made an ounce of sense to me. This man, Calixo he called himself, said he was joining me. That he would make me see his beauty, whatever it took. That he could bear to do no less. It reinforced my opinion. The words vainglorious cad again fell from my lips, and again he collapsed with a shriek. As promised, though, Calixo followed wherever I went.
Do you now see my beauty, sir?
Utterly exhausted by him, I gave him the answer he wanted. He insisted I hadn't
said it from the heart.
Yes, well, there's good reason for that. He told me he served as a recruiter for Sanctuarium. And he only dealt with a very specific subset of people. I had no interest in his work. But that didn't stop him prattling on about it. A fiend appeared before us. The twinkle suddenly returned to his eye. He was brimming with energy now. It was as if we had beheld a vision come from heaven.
Allow me to redefine grace in motion for you.
True to his organization's code, he saved the monster. But that was only the beginning of his work, he explained. No one can say whether those who are saved find true salvation afterwards. Those who drowned in their desires once often sink into them again. And society does not look kindly on those who have become monsters. Many of the saved endure prejudice and abuse. Only a lucky handful can return to their former lives. The woman Calixo saved seemed truly repentant. She said her name was Pulcha. In response, Calixo pressed the former monster to join the ranks of Sanctuarium. The organization serves as a haven for reformed fiends with nowhere else to turn. His calling was to go forth and extend the hand of salvation directly. What matters is how we atone. All humans err, we transgress.
As when you insulted me, sir,
he added unnecessarily.
I'm ravishing, am I not?
He put the question to Pulcha, the poor woman he'd only just met. She nodded politely, though it was clear she was merely humoring the one who had saved her. His next task was to escort the girl to Sanctuarium's hold. He asked me to assist him in this.
Do this, and I'll forgive your slander, sir.
Calixo then began to tell the girl an account of his own past. He had been a common sorcerer, a faithful adherent to Avalon's code. But an encounter with one monster changed his life. The beast had been a young woman once.
Help me!
Finishing off a pleading target. Just another part of the necessary evil we sorcerers trade in. But that day, he couldn't do it. He saved that woman, Alba she was called. Though he couldn't offer a reason. Well, who amongst us can say why they've fallen in love?
Funny, isn't it?
He said after finishing his tale.
A man as ravishing as I, falling in love at first sight, and with a former monster, no less.
Pulcha listened intently, so he continued speaking. Ever since falling for that girl, he was filled with empathy for former monsters. Which was when he first began to gaze at his face, out of habit. Calixo and this woman, Alba, fell deeply in love. But her past drew the scorn of those around them. So they moved away from prying eyes to live alone together. To her, Calixo was special, unique among men. Who could ever say they loved someone as much as she loved him? Alba came to him with a confession. Her father, too, had become a monster in the past. And the children of monsters, they too were shunned. In the end, her spirit buckled. And so she became a monster. But even her past did not dissuade Calixto from his affections. Her parents' crimes made no difference to him. He loved her.
Enough talk. For now,
He said wearily. Pulcha seemed eager to hear more, but agreed to leave the rest for the following day. The new day came. But Pulcha had vanished. And thus our search began. Calixto explained this was common among former monsters.
I expect it's the fear of never being truly human again.
The girl he'd loved, Alba, was no exception. Their life together did not last for long. A creeping change took root in her mind. She was perpetually afraid. Her father had been a monster, as had she herself. Wasn't it fair to assume the cycle would continue? Doubts became fears, became obsessions. Humans who become monsters are doomed to the same mistakes. It was a common belief, but none held it more true than she.
She loved me with all her heart and more.
Ironically, it was that love that tortured her. If she became a monster again, he would be disgusted with her. This kind man, her first love. He was the one person whose hatred she couldn't possibly bear. Before me now stood this narcissist, biting hard upon his lip as if to punish himself. He shared the end of his story with me. Alba began to eat less and less. She withered away. No salve or spell can cure what ails the heart. Now sickly and frail, she asked a final favor of him. Before she became a monster, before he had cause to hate her, she wished to be his sacrifice. Let her live on in his right arm as a beautiful memory. Calixto just couldn't bear to watch his love's heart crumble. He did as she asked. Alba's love for him was true, deep as any love could be. Her soul affirmed that, housed now within his flesh. The woman who loved him was now a part of his own body. They were truly inseparable. And so he came to feel at times a tremendous love for himself. As a kind of proof that the woman who loved him so was still with him. When we found Pulcha, she was alone and shivering.
But if I was to falter again...
She cried. Calixo wrapped an arm around her trembling shoulders.
Even if you became a monster again, you would have an ally in me. I'd save you every time.
I wonder if it wasn't Alba he wished to speak those words to. If he regretted the sacrifice of the woman he loved, well... It's in how we atone for our sins that truly matters. But perhaps his words were more for his own benefit. Calixo, cursed to love himself, lives on, so he may help others.